Hi, I'm Shelby Williams with Plano City Council. Tonight's City Council recap. First, I give a shout out, very happy birthday today to my little girl, Olivia. I am not in my suit because I had to go put my other little girl to bed after the council meeting before I could do the recap. So, starting off with the preliminary open, we appointed 2 new ethics investigators. We had, a while back, said we want ethics investigators for the city. These are people who we basically call at need to investigate ethics complaints. We wanted people who actually had an ethics background. So we appointed 2 new ones tonight. We also went over the city audit results. So there's an annual audit every year, basically going over all of our financial reporting. So it was assessing issues or to look for issues with reporting and any misstatements, material misstatements. I am happy to say that there were none. The auditors issued an unmodified opinion, which is the highest rating they could get. And it's worth pointing out that our city staff did a tremendous job where other municipalities struggled to produce documents on time, given the issues with last year. We produced early and very effectively, so thank you to our city staff. I should note that a successful audit means that we accounted for the money properly, your tax money. It does not mean we spent it most wisely. An auditor can't determine that, only you can determine that. You have to hold us accountable for how we're spending your money. You can do that, well, really every council meeting you can speak, but you can do it in the most notable way by voting in the city elections, the next of which is coming up on May 1st of this year, 2021. So we then had a discussion on mandatory retirement age. This came up a while back when Councilwoman Maria Tu and I brought up the idea of term limits for appointed positions. Council appoints 3 roles, the city manager, city attorney, and the chief municipal judge. So one of the alternatives that was brought forth was, instead of term limits, a mandatory retirement age. We had a fair bit of discussion about this tonight, but the council voted and determined not to move forward with that. We then moved on to the meatiest discussion, which is the 2021 bond referendum. Now, if you've read any of the stuff that I posted lately and published, you know that a potential of $404 million had been put forth for council to put on the bond referendum in the election on May 1st. Now, pardon me. That was the potential maximum. All the projects totaled $404 million. Our job tonight was to pare that down to what we wanted to present to you, the voters, on the ballot. We whittled a lot of stuff off. I have not been able to do the math yet to see what made the cut. Looking at what remained, I'm guessing it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 million, $320 million that will show up on the bond, but it's not in one item. It doesn't say, do you want to approve $320 million in bonds, yes or no? There are going to be 7 different items broken up amongst different categories. So we did say that the Tom Muhlenbeck Center is going to be broken out into its own bond referendum. It's a proposed $15.9 million project. Go ahead and round that up to $16 million. So we're going to have a proposed bond for streets. We're going to have a proposed bond for parks and recreation centers. Then we're going to have the Tom Muhlenbeck Center renovation all by itself. Then we're going to have facilities broken up amongst public safety, municipal center, and facilities. I'm sorry, public works, I believe, public works. So total 7 items on the bond. You can go through and pick and choose. You can say, I want to approve this one, I don't want to approve this one, I don't want to approve this one, I want to approve all the rest. However you like to do it. Now, I was mistaken about one thing. I published earlier that legally I cannot advocate for or against a bond measure after it's settled, like we did tonight. I was mistaken. We cannot use public funds to advocate for or against bond measures. I, in my personal capacity, without expending a dime of taxpayer money, like I'm not expending right now, can advocate for or against whatever the heck I like. So after I'm able to review what made the cut and what didn't, expect some articles and some videos from me about the different bond measures that are coming out and will be on the May 1st ballot, the pros and cons of each, as well as my positions on them. I, after all, am going to vote for them myself, so I will share with you all how I feel about each one. I should say that the break-even point, and what we're calling that, is the amount of money, the amount of approved bonds above which would necessitate a tax increase. I think it's around 170 million currently. So like if $170 million worth of bonds are approved in the May 1st election, and we issue those bonds over the coming years as we're anticipating, then your taxes would not go up from where they are now as a direct result of that. But if we approve $250 million in bonds, then that would necessitate a tax increase. If you approved 0 bonds, then your taxes would fall. You would get a tax cut as a result. Now, I'm going to go ahead and advocate now. I don't think that would be wise. A lot of the bonds that we're facing are because we've got a lot of infrastructure that needs repair and replacement. Our streets, most notably, 237 million of the 404 was just for streets, the 404 maximum. So our city was built out in bursts, largely 20 and 30 years ago. A lot of our roads, depending on the makeup and the size of road and the location, they have a lifespan of about 20 to 30 years. Well, guess what? Our warranty's up. So we have a lot of work that needs to be done. If I recall correctly, at the last meeting, we said that there's $3.4 billion worth of roads and alleys in the entire city. Now, obviously, we're in no position to replace them all at once, nor would we want to. But we got to make sure that we're doing the proper repair and replacement on those roadways annually, in perpetuity, to maintain our city. So that's why this bond election is particularly large. So I'll break all of that down for you later. The Deputy Mayor Pro Tem put on as an item on a future agenda to achieve a more equitable distribution of the COVID vaccine for Collin and Denton counties. Now, you may have seen some things lately from Judge Hill of Collin County that Collin and Denton counties are not getting enough distribution of the COVID vaccine proportionate to our population in the counties. And we think that's a big problem, of course. So the state legislators are working on it, county commissioners, courts, and judges are working on it with the state to make sure that the distribution is equitable. And at the next meeting, a resolution will be proposed for City Council, Plano City Council, to throw our voice behind that. The next item in the preliminary open is that we are standing up some additional vaccine sites. We had applied to the state to set up vaccine sites in Plano. I think at the moment or as of last week, there were 4 operating in Collin County. Plano was not one of those. We are setting up I think it was a private partnership with a hospital to deliver vaccines out of Clark Stadium. And then because Councilwoman Lily Bao resigned her position at the last meeting for place 7 in order to run for mayor, whom I am supporting, by the way. I am supporting Lily Bao for mayor. We will have a special election for her seat on May 1st for place 7. Now, she will continue to serve until the replacement is qualified under Texas state law. But the filing period for that vacant seat is different than the filing period for the remaining seats. The filing period for the vacant place 7 seat will start February 9th. Now, this is important for anyone who wants to run for that seat. We are going to call the special election itself at the meeting on February 8th. You cannot start getting petition signatures to run for that place until we actually call the special election. And so the filing will open the next day, February 9th, and will run until 5 p.m., close of business on March 1st. So filing for the open place 7 seat will be February 9th through 5 p.m. March 1st. And you cannot collect petition signatures until starting February 8th. But then you will have until March 1st to collect those, unlike the other seats that are currently up. So then we moved on to the regular meeting. A certificate of commendation was issued to the planning department for their work. They were recently recognized for two specific efforts. Appointments were made to the Cultural Affairs Commission, welcome Emily Moore, and to the Tax Increment Finance Reinvestment Zone 2 and 3, that just rolls right off the tongue, to Liz Lansing. Thank you very much for stepping up. Recognitions of service were given to Lawrence Bisno on the Community Relations Commission and to Steve Levine on Parks and Rec, who resigned in order to run for City Council, I'm given to understand, against Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Anthony Ricciardelli for Place 2. Now, just as I support Lily Bow for mayor, I wholeheartedly support Anthony Ricciardelli for Place 2. Then we moved on to our items of individual consideration. We had our consent agenda. We did pull one item from that to have it reviewed by a committee first. Now, there were three things tied together, I should say, in tonight's items for individual consideration. Two of them were, actually all three were tabled at the August 10th meeting last year. Two of them are new proposed zoning districts applied to the Envision Oak Point area. And one of them is the development of the hotel for the Plano Event Center, which was meant to use one of those new zoning districts as the zoning basis for building. However, when those were brought before us in August, the new zoning districts, we felt it was premature because the new comprehensive plan had not yet been finished. Well, we had to pick a date. Based on law, we had to specify a date instead of leaving it open. So we had picked tonight to revisit those zoning districts, believing that the comprehensive plan might be finished by this time. It is not. And I had gone into tonight's meeting ready to table these items again. However, Mayor Pro Tem Prince brought up a compromise, which is to consider the new zoning districts applicable only to the Plano Event Center land instead of to all of Envision Oak Point, and to modify the zoning districts so that they are not more broadly applicable as they were brought before us and were brought before us last August as well. So ultimately we did that. The two zoning districts are residential community design and neighborhood business design. These names by themselves tell you absolutely nothing. So the residential community design is meant to have smaller footprint homes like townhomes, duplexes, etc., of a single family variety. The neighborhood business design is meant to have higher density and more multifamily in a kind of a mixed use way. Both of these did pass tonight, but only for the Plano Event Center property. If they want to apply, if anybody wants to apply them to land outside the event center property, then they got to come back up to bat and they got to get it approved all over again for the rest of Envision Oak Point, or anywhere else in the city that they want to apply it. Now, the responses that we got from citizen input, they're pretty right down the middle in support and opposed to these categories. But the bottom line, at least for me and the rest of the council, it ended up, is that because the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee is not yet finished with its work, and we don't yet have a new comprehensive plan, it's still premature to consider these as broadly applicable or applicable anywhere except where we place them tonight. So we did pass both of those categories tonight, only for the Plano Event Center property, and then we passed that project, we approved that project to move forward with the hotel at the Plano Event Center. And that was it for today. So remember to look out for the deep explanation of what's on the bond ballot and look for the filings. We're going to have our next meeting on February 8th, where we're going to actually call the special election for Place 7. Lots of folks can jump in the city council race. I am blessedly not on a ballot this year, so you don't have to vote for me, but you can still support me. Watch my videos, subscribe to my blog, and keep your ears open. Thank you. Good night.